All right, hey everybody, morning. Trying to make sure everything's working again after that crazy power outage yesterday. Sorry about that. Can't control whatever that was. Sound like I don't know. Sound like somebody hit a power pole, but there were no sirens afterward. Wasn't a transformer blowing up. Pretty sure. I don't know. So morning, Craig, Rob, Don, or Donald, Ivan, Jerry, David, my man Skaggs, General Rush, good to see you. Will, Svenmore, and Gary, Mad, Hugh, Cliff, Dan, Logan, Ted, Pauline, Kevin, Nancy, Mary, Diane, Aki, Terry, and then all the other subscribers. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. So, Trump signed some executive orders. And, how do we put this in perspective? So, picture this. You're playing a game, and suddenly you realize that your opponent has been building up their army and you've been kind of sitting there idle for 4 years. That's kind of what's happened in America in the drone wars. We're kind of behind the times here. It's a story that's about to potentially change the way Americans travel. Now, let me take you back so you can understand how we got here. Imagine that 90% of all the cars in America were made by one foreign country, and that country wasn't exactly our best friend. Well, that's exactly what happened in drones. 90% of all the drones flying around in America, including the ones that our military uses, are all made in China. Yeah, at least with China parts. Yeah, you heard that right. So, the same drones that could be, spying on your backyard barbecue, maybe watching our military bases, or delivering your packages from Walmart. They're rolling out 5 new cities. By Chinese law, they have to cooperate with their own government if asked. And if asking that meant invading your privacy, well, that's a problem. So that's not so cool about those flying gadgets, right? We're talking about technology that's potentially going to reshape how everything kind of works and possibly how we travel over the next decade or two. Thinking about it. Imagine sitting in traffic. I mean, we've all done that, right? And possibly instead of sitting in traffic to get across town, you jump in an electric flying taxi. Potentially there in 10 minutes or less. And instead of waiting days for package delivery, Walmart's now rolling out 5 new cities that you could get it. They said the average delivery time from order to delivery is 17 minutes. I mean, that's pretty wild. These electric aircraft could provide cheaper, cleaner, easier, short-term travel pathways. But here's the kicker. While America has been sleeping on this technology for the last 4 years, China has been building out technology like crazy. They didn't just get ahead. They've kind of lapped us around the track a few times. So it's like showing up to the race, finding out that the winner's already sitting at the winner's circle, celebrating a cold one. The wake-up call came from some pretty smart people. Mark Anderson, one of Silicon Valley's biggest investors, the guy who helped create the internet browser, basically, went on a podcast and said, hey, we got a problem. He explained that there are 3 industries where China has been dominating globally. Drones were the number 1 on that list. And when a billionaire tech investor is worried about something, maybe some more people should pay attention. And this story isn't just about being behind in this stuff. It's about national security, economic opportunity, and good old American innovation, right? Every drone flying over America could potentially be collecting data about our infrastructure and military. I mean, everybody remembers the balloon that flew across the country, right? And then we go shoot it down with a multi-million-dollar missile. I mean, it's crazy. We've got all these regulations too. We've been piling on regulations that make it harder for American companies in Americas to compete in this industry. Meanwhile, Chinese companies fly in circles around us, literally, with this technology. So President Trump walked in the Oval Office and signed 3 executive orders last Friday that basically declared war on America's, for lack of a better term, severe lack of investment in this industry. So what exactly do these executive orders do? Well, Executive Order number 1 was to fast track the future, basically told the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, that stop dragging your feet, all right? Start approving drone technologies. And for years, American companies have been waiting for permission to test their flying cars, their delivery drones beyond line of sight. And that's why a lot of these technologies have been other places, like in Africa, doing these beyond line of sight deliveries. We've got companies that deliver blood in Africa beyond line of sight, and we got nothing like that here in the United States. It's crazy. So Executive Order number 1 tells the FAA to hurry up and figure it out, make it legal, get some framework that we can operate on, because if it's illegal to even compete, well, that's a big problem. All right. Maybe we get those flying taxis the Jetsons showed us years and years ago. Now, Order number 2, keeping the spies out. Now, the second focus is on national security, and that's where things got kind of serious. Now, remember how I mentioned Chinese law can force those companies to, give over the data, right? They could even spy on our own government. Well, this order tightens the restrictions on foreign-made drones, especially those being used near sensitive locations like military bases, government buildings, critical infrastructure. And you wouldn't really want your biggest rival to have cameras flying around your house, taking pictures of everything you do and every idea you have. And that's essentially what we're doing, all right? Now, it's not just about keeping the bad actors out, though. It's about making sure that when we do use our drones for important stuff, that we're the ones that we can trust. It's, whether it's delivering medical supplies or helping disaster relief, we know that nothing's, secretly going to shut this drone down or stop it or send all the data back to a foreign government. Executive Order number 3 in this pile of executive orders is Make It in America. And the third order is all about bringing that drone manufacturing back to American soil. It's not just about patriotism. It's about economic survival and technology independence and innovation, good old American innovation. And so if China decided tomorrow to ban the export of drones to America, we'd be kind of in trouble right now. I mean, our emergency responders rely on this stuff. Our farmers rely on this stuff. Even our military would be in serious trouble with this stuff. So it's not a position that any country wants to be in, beholden to another country for, a big tech item, right? So this order encourages American companies to actually start building drones here at home, and helps provide a framework to export those to other countries. And it's about creating jobs, bringing expertise back home, and making sure that the next generation of drone technology is made in America. So here's where this gets kind of interesting, though. This isn't just about traditional drones. We're talking about a whole new category of aircraft called EVTOLs. That's a mouthful, right? That's basically electric vertical takeoff, E, electric, V, vertical, T, O, takeoff, and landing aircraft. Now, under the current FAA regulations, it's a pipe dream. I know, it sounds like science fiction stuff, but these are real, and they're coming. There's companies that have been developing these for years. And they're kind of like helicopters, but different, all right? They do require uniquely trained, highly educated, well-experienced pilots at this point, at least for testing. They've been, helicopters are the competition. They're loud, expensive, and, kind of dangerous. So EVTOLs, EVTOLs, whatever, are designed to be quieter, cheaper, and eventually replace those pilots that are needed. They can take off and land vertically like a helicopter, and they don't need long runways like airplanes. These potentially could have even smaller landing pads than like heliports that we're all used to. Could be, they've been designed to work off of vertiports that can be on top of buildings and parking lots. So imagine your daily commute. Instead of sitting in traffic for an hour, you walk to a vertiport, hop in an electric taxi, fly over to your destination in 10 minutes. No traffic lights, no traffic jams, no road rage, just a smooth, quiet flight in the sky. Sounds like a pipe dream here in the United States, right? That's why these executive orders were so important. Now, these things could kind of change the game for a lot of things. All right. Search and rescue, they could go faster. Disaster relief could go faster, especially, if you don't need helicopters that are kind of dangerous to operate, especially if you could autonomously operate these things. So when news of these three executive orders hit the markets, investors, this is where we get to the point where we kind of pay attention. What are the companies that kind of stand to benefit here from these executive orders? So it's kind of like the government just announced that they're going to help fund the next iPhone. I mean, when you put it into kind of like a similar situation, So Archer Aviation jumped 9% pre-market on yesterday, and these guys are building an EVTOL, one of those vertical takeoff landing aircraft that looks something like a superhero movie. The aircraft can carry passengers on short urban flights, and they're working with airlines and ride-sharing companies to potentially roll this out. Joby Aviation, Joby, Archer is ACHR. Now, Joby also rose about 9%, and it's been one of the leaders in the EVTOL space, and they've already gotten approval from the FAA for some of their testing. So they've, even despite the regulatory framework that's very difficult, they've already got some testing under process here. So they're planning to make a launch commercially of air taxi services in major cities, and these executive orders just made the path kind of smoother. Now we also have Vertical Aerospace, EVTL is the ticker. This one was up about 8%, and this is a British company, and they're working on getting their aircraft certified in the United States. They're building EVTOLs that can carry up to 4 people, and they have partnerships with some major airlines. Then we also have Blade Air Mobility, BLDE, which gained about 2%. Blade is a bit different than the others because they already operate helicopter services in New York City. They're positioned themselves to be like the Uber of the sky, and EVTOL aircraft, when they become available, they plan to be in on that and integrate them right into their existing service and platform. So they've got kind of the platform for getting the customers, that framework, the end user framework already in place. They're the operator, basically. But here's the thing about these stock movements. They're not just about short-term excitement. Investors are betting that these things can unleash a wave of innovation and growth on an entirely new kind of industry that we don't really have in the United States. And, drones and these EVTOLs could follow a similar trajectory of exploding higher if this thing could, actually get going. It's kind of like a new app for an iPhone. iPhones are cool and all, but they didn't really have the app. Once the apps started coming out, then the popularity came out. So once the applications for these really start picking up, demand for them could pick up. Now, threats, potentially self-driving cars and things like that could alleviate traffic, but humans are going to be hard to adopt that technology too. So this could be amazing, but it also, it could flop, could pop, who knows. So we're seeing the potential for jobs, lots of jobs in this industry. And these aren't just any jobs, they're high-paying, high-skilled jobs, designing EVTOLs, operating EVTOLs, maintaining EVTOLs. There's going to be a lot to it. And these things are going to have a lot of smarts to them. They're going to be a lot of self-flying technology. Secondly, innovation. When American companies are free to experiment and test new technologies, we get new stuff, things we can't even imagine. And we don't have to worry about foreign governments controlling any of the technology or having backdoors or collecting information, any of that. So another benefit is the drone industry is projected to be worth over $100 billion in the next decade. So that's a pretty good growth right there. And if American companies can capture a significant share of the market, it could boost our economy for generations if this thing actually gets legs. And we solve real problems. Traffic congestion in America, it sucks. I mean, I've wasted countless days of my life sitting in traffic. I don't know about you. Air pollution, from from those cars sitting there in traffic. And these drones and EVTOLs can help solve all these problems potentially. Now, the cons, where it could go wrong, I mean, let's be honest. Safety first. Flying cars sound cool, but one crashes in your house and kills kills somebody. I mean, that's just, kills the person on board, kills somebody sitting on your couch. I mean, it's kind of bad, right? And that's why the FAA has been kind of slow to approve new drone technology, partly because safety first, safety third. I don't know. Rushing to approve these things could lead to accidents and set things back years. We saw the litigation of small airplanes pick up in the late 80s and 90s, and it still stifles pilots like myself from being able to afford aircraft. Second, we have noise. Even though EVTOLs are quieter than helicopters, they're not silent, and if we have thousands of these things buzzing around, it's noise pollution, right? I mean, imagine trying to sleep while air taxis are whizzing by constantly. Now, third, we have cost. New technology is always expensive, and EVTOLs are not going to be cheap. Maybe people can afford them, maybe not. It could take years or even decades before these services become reasonably affordable for regular people like you and me. And then fourth, job displacement. New industries create jobs, but they also eliminate other jobs. And delivering packages via drones, that cuts out delivery drivers. And EVTOLs could replace some car trips and traffic, but what happens to taxi drivers and rideshare drivers? But that also what happens when full self-driving cars hit the road later this week. 2 days for Tesla, right? Then privacy concerns. The more cameras we have flying around in the air means more data collection. And even if they're American-made drones, how do you trust big tech? Who has access to the data? What do we do with it? And then we have more regulatory challenges ahead. The FAA doesn't just regulate aircraft, they regulate the entire airspace system, including how these things integrate into the rest of the system. They've already really put the screws on the drone industry compared to the Wild West it was when they first started coming out. You have regulations where you can fly, when you can fly, how you can fly, all sorts of things, line of sight, and all this sort of things. And how do we get all of these integrated into that system without causing chaos and accidents and just increasing the complexity exponentially? So now these executive orders just weren't about helping American companies. They're about beating China in this technology arms race. So in the end, what does this mean for you? Now, it presents investing opportunity and could change the way transportation works in this country. So if you believe it might happen, those are opportunities. We can look at those charts and hopefully we get this. One of the companies has been on late night with Jimmy Fallon, or I guess the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, really hyping up the fact that they are the EVTOL provider for the LA Olympics in 2028. And they promise that it's going to be a carless future in LA. And I guess we're going to see what actually happens. So, we could see air ambulances get there in moments instead of hours, or, it could be crazy, right? The hospital could just dispatch an air ambulance, EVTOL, in moments, go pick somebody up at their house if they had a heart attack. I mean, it's, hiker in the mountains could be found quickly. Or if hiker in the mountains has a medical emergency, go pick them up. So it's not just science fiction. These things, these executive orders do try to knock this off dead center. So it's an investment opportunity and potential. We'll see if it actually pans out. And all trading involves a substantial risk of loss. Past performance not necessarily indicative of future results. This presentation intended to be informational, educational, fun, entertaining. Not a recommendation to be buying or selling any financial instruments, including stocks, options, bonds, forex, futures, cryptos. And if you desire personal financial advice, hire a consultant financial advisor. And if you liked any of that, if you have any feedback for me, please let me know in the chat or leave a comment down below. I do appreciate the feedback. I put some effort into that story today, if you couldn't tell. So how do we make money today? What's cooking? What's shaking? We're actually hitting that next little resistance box on the S&P here. That actually, that story was a little longer than I planned. It pushed me into the market open here, and we're lower than we were yesterday, but we're actually pushing in here. We've hit it 1, 2, 3 days in a row now. And overnight action, not really clear. That's interesting. Press and hold to see detailed chart values. Press and hold what? I don't know what that, like, I don't know what that pop-up came up of. That's weird. So overnight action, jumping up, hitting that fib line. Nice. We did hit it yesterday afternoon, and then we pushed on through. Like, look at that. Beautiful. Perfect. Hit the 1272, pulled back to the consolidation, out to the 1272, pulled back into the consolidation. Was that the final move? That may have been it. That's a pretty impulsive move down. So, little baby, small time frame. We're on the 15-minute chart. Small time frame. Pullback, potential A, B, or 1, 2. Interesting. So every morning I go pull all the things moving $2 or more up, put it on the gainers list, $2 or more down, put it on the decliners list, and I bring some of my setups that are set up to go. And then I give you my bias for the day. So stick around to the very end if you want to see the bias, and we will get there. We'll get there. NASDAQ also not providing much clarity. Did not hit the 14448 or the 1272. So actually seeing some more weakness in NASDAQ. And an interesting metric I saw last night, NTW, WH, there we go. I haven't actually looked at this chart before. Let's turn this off log mode. This is the same as S&P 500 stocks above their 200-day. Our S5TH right here. This is NASDAQ stocks above their 200-day. We've just been hovering. Somebody mentioned that this was just in a downtrend, and it is in a long-term downtrend. Right there. Oh, that's cool. Thanks. Yeah, well, while you're right in the middle of broadcasting, why don't we upgrade your software? Cool. This has been a downtrend, and we're right up to this downtrend line here. I did take it off log mode. Let's see. I need to add a couple lines. Horizontal line. I should add a horizontal ray. Let's add that at 20. Not array. Line. I need the line that goes both ways, not just one way. Horizontal line. 20 and 80. Cool. Won't give me 2. Let's edit those. Coordinates 80. Cha-ching. Edit this one. Put it at 20. And we need to lock that one. I don't know why I don't lock more stuff instead of moving it around all the time. There you go. So there's the zones. There's the zone, auto zone. We're not making highs here. So despite the bullish momentum, S&P is not even above 50. And then things making new 52-week highs despite all this bullish momentum, almost nothing. So we're right at that big downtrend on NASDAQ. Can we bust through? It's a good question. Be careful out there, all right? I'm not saying that we're flushing this baby down but the potential is here to get a nice big fat correction, at least back to the daily roadmap line. The potential is on the chart. Russell is going ahead and going for the 618 right now. If we actually hit this and start a reversal down, things could get pretty nasty pretty quick on the Russell. Oil actually pushed through yesterday. Resistance is right here, right around 68. If we get through that, we've got the big downtrend of highs that we've had going for a few years, up around the 70s. And if we get above that, kind of opens the door to really get some legs on oil going higher. Could be pushing on up to this resistance right around 100, 105, right up in here. That would just totally blow the doors off of cheap oil and investment and stuff like that. Gold here, yeah, fewer stocks going higher. That's definitely a cause for caution. So gold, that looked like an A wave down. This looks like a B wave up. And right now we've rolled off of this high here. Potential for this thing to come down pretty big. And we're seeing that across gold futures. We're seeing this, also show up here, even though we made that higher high. What is typically what happens after we do that? Back to the roadmap line. So despite the fact we made that high, we could pull this all the way back down in here very quickly. Be careful. The only one that seems to be beating its own drum here, silver. Reaching those extensions, we may get to that 3760 area. If we do, watch for a retrace right back down to the roadmap line, that 618 retrace. That would be, if we come down there and hold, that's your opportunity to load up for what's coming next. Right there. Bitcoin. Let's see. Let's go to the cash market or the spot market. We did push all the way up into that 786 yesterday by the close. Got all the way up into that resistance right there. Fully tested it. That's still set up with an A. That's a 5 move down, potentially an A. Almost nothing. So actually that looks more like a W, X, and we potentially getting a Y. We potentially getting a Y coming up next here. So WXY. Ys are still impulsive. We should get a 5-wave decline down in here, probably somewhere in the 94 to 98 zone. Be careful out there. Not sure the Bitcoin is going to break out right now. This and a lot of the charts, right, like these, need that deeper retrace here. A lot of these Bitcoin charts need that deeper retrace to support going higher. IBIT, another one of them, needs that deeper retrace. FBTC needs that deeper retrace. So a lot of these need that deeper retrace to support going higher again. It's just part of the wave 1 up, 2 down. Need that to finish setting up so we can support going higher. It's just part of the game here. So potential for this to come on down in this area right in here. And it's the same across almost, pretty much every single Bitcoin ETF all looks the same right there. Ethereum poked up, didn't make a higher high. What can I say? Still consolidating. NKD popped back in the box over the last 2 days here. Still hitting that downtrend, or the uptrend of lows, I should say, and the downtrend of the local downtrend of highs, uptrend of lows, that little zone off of this. you pretty much set an alert right here. If we get below that, I have a feeling we're going on a bigger trip down right here. Pretty much. So I'm actually gonna set an alert right there at 37,285. If we get below that, probably heading down here at the minimum to 34. This is a global liquidity indicator. Problems are afoot. DXY. Just kind of churning right here. Higher low so far. Is it, it's kind of a coin flip. Do we flush it one more time down here? Or do we actually bounce here and make a run at the roadmap line? That's the daily roadmap line above us. Do we make a run at it, higher high? Or do we make that lower low? That's the question right now, and that's not a high probability setup for anything. Although if we do push back below that low right there, pretty much that really tips the odds that we're going to make that lower low right there on DXY. That's the dollar index. Mag 7 stuff. Apple has done virtually nothing since April. Maybe you even go back to early April. They've essentially done jack diddly nothing since right there. That's rough right there. And for a lot of years, so goes Apple, so goes the market. The market's kind of been churning a little bit. We did pop back up, but we've just been churning for like nearly 3 weeks here. Look at this. I mean, it's tough. Like, we've just been on a little bit of drift for 28 days. That's 4 weeks now. 4 calendar weeks, not really going anywhere. So if you feel like, there's been a couple people who give me a little hard time, like, I feel like I'm missing out, not being bullish enough. The market hadn't really gone much of anywhere. It's a 3% drift, from the lows to the highs over the last 4 weeks. But, I mean, really, it's been 4 weeks of not really moving much. Not really, not compared to what it was before. I mean, not compared to this. This was a big pop, but it also was a big drop, and we took it right back. And if you've been sleeping on the market since basically since the election, we've done jack nothing. Basically since the election, we've done nothing at all. For 209 days. I mean, over 6 months. Nothing. Try to pop, try to break out, try to break down. Bunch of nothing. It's been a tough market to make some money in. Timing has been everything, but at the same time, what do you do? What do you do, right? How do you make money in this market? That's why I've been doing the 50K challenge, trying to do something for myself that's, my name was on that right there. Right here's me, 100% win rates. Last 3 months, $5,000, not bad. Look at the year, $5,000. This is something I started basically tax week right here. All time for this account, $4,600. I basically left this account for dead a while back. And you can see right here, messed with it during COVID, didn't really like Robinhood, left it alone. But there's a thing. When you trade a bunch of options, Robinhood is a pretty good place to trade because they don't charge you any fees on options. And I've been trading up to 30 contracts a week trying to do this 50K challenge. So this has been a pretty good place to trade. You can see the gains right there. No losses since I started the challenge, so may take one on my protection position. We'll see. The market doesn't roll over between now and the 18th. Probably have to book that one as a loss, but they protected me, covered my downside, covered my backside. So not too shabby right here. You wonder what you can do, make some money. There you go. That represents almost 6% gain right there in the month and a half or so that I've been doing this. I guess we're getting close to 2 months. So despite all this, since, basically I started that tax week, and really I started doing that strategy back here in February. So I've been doing this whole strategy all the way through this big dip of, basically going nowhere, and haven't really taken a loss yet on one of the main bread and butter trades. How do you get a piece of that? Become a channel member if you want to see, daily updates on what I'm holding, what the open positions are, what the orders are. Channel members get that daily as far as when I make an update. KInfo has all the trades after they're closed, if you want to check that out. And if you want every trade as they happen with, and be able to ask questions, Termar Trading Lab. That's my VIP all access group. That's how you get that. Link is in the description if you want to check that out. jeffreytrader.com/inquire. And now I'll have my team member reach out to you. So that's Apple going nowhere. Amazon has this potential for another big down. We made a big down, potential to make another big down. Google, big down, potential to make another big down. We're coming up into that resistance. Yeah, I've been off of that one for a couple of weeks now after we got into this danger zone. Meta, big down, another potential for another big down. Microsoft reaching up, probably going to get to that 486 target. It already did the two big downs. So this one's running ahead of the market here. NVIDIA, big down, another potential for another big down. And Tesla, big down with a potential to get continuations for another big down. This one already did a pullback to the roadmap line, holding in here pretty well. Has this opportunity to break out and go higher also. Something a little more bullish. A little bit of a coin flip at this current moment. If we get above that prior high right here from a couple weeks back, right there, potentially sets us up to go back at least to retest the high we made back here in December. Kind of sets us up for that right there. Cybercab, whatever, the app where you can hail a self-driving Tesla in the city of Austin, due to be released in 2 days. If you weren't following what I was talking about during the monologue, there you go. That's the Mag 7s for you. What's moving today? Casey popping up. Beautiful run. They bought all the Pilot. If you've ever seen a Pilot Travel Center, Pilot calls Knoxville home. And they used to have convenience stores, small gas stations just for cars, not just travel centers. And they sold all of their local smaller gas stations to Casey's a couple years back. So we didn't have Casey's here. Now we have a ton of Casey's here everywhere. And Pilot has decided to focus on the Pilot Flying J travel centers. INSM, nice pop there. That's probably played out. Casey's not really, it's just a trend. There's no pullback at this point, but you can keep ripping. And it looks like that chart reminds me of the Lilly and NVO when they were just ripping and ripping and ripping. Almost no pullbacks, just keep ripping. Eventually we get to the top and then we do a big correction. So NVO, those are on the GLP-1 drugs. NVO just kept ripping. Now pullback. Potentially we've made a bottom on NVO and Lilly, but we'll see. ASML, trying to break on out through this roadmap line. On the daily, we are into this prior resistance zone right there. If we can get on above it, we could rally on up to the 870 area up here. ETHU up on Ethereum popping, but that's giving it back a little bit already. App 11 into this danger zone. Can we break out or do we break back down? Has the big move down, just like most of the Mag 7s. Could get another big down, just like the majority of the Mag 7s. TSM, looks like we're going to push that on up. It does have a big down and a potential to go to another big down, but 240 would be my upside target there. SBET, As I said, this one's coming back down. Just a matter of time before we get back down there. EETH, nothing clear there. Restoration Hardware, $3 move, but it looks like nothing on this chart. That has a potential first move up. Nice retrace. Sorry for the truck noise. First move up, retrace. The next move will kind of set the stage here. Do we stop at the roadmap line, or can we get that extension on up to that 342 area? If we do, it sets up a bullish potential to climb even higher. Something like that. Nice potential long term, but we got to get through. Like, if we just stop right here, could just be a 3-wave up, and we get continuation lower down here. Circle. 4 candles doesn't make anything. First Solar, working on this reversal. Came up just shy of my target zone. May reach down and get that. Be careful there. FETH. A lot of people get frustrated when I say be careful. I'm on it when there's clarity. When there's no clarity, there's nothing to tell you. Like, be careful is what I would tell you. So if you're a believer in First Solar, great. But this pattern can lead to a lower low right there very easily. We came up shy of hitting, fully hitting my target. Got that alert sitting there. You don't really see any alerts up here. I'm not expecting bullish price action. If we get them flush down here, I may add some exposure. Looking for the reversal. All right. Things that were declining, sometimes we can find opportunities here. This is pharmaceutical, not a place I like to play. And this, if we make that lower low, completes 5 down and maybe starting a new trend down. Smucker's Company, well, probably going to make a lower low, it looks like. It's potential to hold this, but if we get below that, odds are we're coming down here to 80 area on Smucker's. Sezzle getting a big pullback off of hitting that ridiculous target. Odds are we come back down to the roadmap line, but if we're going to extend it and be crazy, this could go well on up into the 300 area. And if you look on the log mode, that's why, could be 1, 2, 3, 4, and we could just reach up here for ridiculous 336 targets. Lower holdings, chopping around, probably coming back for the roadmap line. Core Weave, just grinding higher, not enough candles. Liquida, it's chopping around a little bit. Rubric may have played out. McDonald's, back to the roadmap line. Doesn't mess up my trade. My $1 below the low, but I'm not sure this is done. Even if we do dip below there, we still get that 330 target. It's been, it kind of ignored the entirety of the market pullback here, and it's just been grinding sideways. Gosh, we're still at the same place we were in September last year, basically. Just grinding, grinding, grinding. I would expect another pop here. Lake taking that's completing 5 down, so 3-wave retrace up might be the next move, and I would expect it to find resistance in that area right there. Calvo Growers, that sounds like a agricultural. Not really going anywhere. Seeing Core in Maine. May retest this before we can pop on up, but that's a setup to go up to 67 right there. IoT. Here's the high, here's the low. Resistance right there. First move down, looking for the next move down. So the target would be right down in here on IoT PRX. First move down, retrace to the roadmap line, next move down. That's just a roadmap line bounce from below. If we get below that 618, maybe the 786, we'll be looking for target down around 29 or 20, 29, possibly 28. GILD looking up on that one, 124. Cracker Barrel potentially bottomed out. That was the lowest low back there, so did not hold, and so we've got a potential 5 up here. I would be looking for a retrace, either an extension that extended this on up to match that first move up. But typically we see wave 5s, Control C, Control V, kind of match that first move. So potential immediately to rally on up into this area on Cracker Barrel. If we do that, I would expect a 618 retrace, potentially back in the vicinity of the roadmap line right there. Maybe even just hold a 50%, which would be kind of in the ballpark of where this bottomed out right here. And, it could retrace from where it is now, possible. It would look more ideal if we did that and that. And if we do, that opens the door for a very large upside potential. How large, you say? This is going to get crazy for Cracker Barrel, considering they were at $30 here. Could be looking for that, 165. Back to highs we had just 4 years ago. Could be turning that one around for Cracker Barrel. A honky bucket. ATHD pushing on down. And then the one set up today, Legend Pharmaceuticals. Here's the high, here's the low. Looking for that 113 target right there. And it's already on the... That was probably going to hit it right there. Actually, 114 target. Nice. I don't usually trade pharmaceutical, so be careful on that one. Remember, 5 p.m. today, I have 30 minutes of awesome. Take requests for at least 30 minutes. Usually it's like 2 hours. So come hang out with us. Channel members get priority. So if you want priority access on requesting tickers and chart analysis, make sure that you're a channel member by this evening. You can always join for a month and cancel. It's like $5 a month. It's pretty affordable. And I do the 30 minutes of awesome every week. So you can come get your requests in there. Now, bias for the day. Very cautious here. We're not showing much enthusiasm. And support is right here at the 59.80 for the 15 minutes. Come down there, test it. 30 minute below that, down here at 59.40. 1 hour below that, down here at 58.80. They're pretty stacked right there. And then the 4 hour down here at 57.75. And the daily on down at 57.30. We're in this little resistance zone, so I don't necessarily expect much price action above, say, 60.60 right now. If we were to hit that, be very, very cautious on at least a pullback like this. There's your upside potential versus, all those levels we talked about coming all the way down to the daily. All right. Just grinding. Grinder out. We do have CPI coming up tomorrow. That's a caution. Caution, caution. We may see some problems. How do I maintain patience? You size everything so that you sleep well at night and don't worry about it. And, there's plenty of stuff to focus on, plenty of stuff to look at. Don't stay focused on the one thing you're in. Diversify, spread it out. Anyway, have a great day, everybody. We'll see you again. 30 minutes of awesome, 5 p.m. Eastern. Come hang out.